video, I'm going to give you 3 tips to help improve your MBE score by 30 points. Our first tip is that you should study and focus on those highly tested areas of law. It's really hard, if not impossible, to know everything that you study when you walk into the bar exam. You can't have every word of every single outline memorized. It's just not possible for the average examinee. So how do you maximize your chances of passing? Specifically, how do you improve your MBE score? And that's our first tip. Focus on those highly tested areas of law. But I would guess a lot of you are thinking to yourself, well, how do you know, or how do I find out what are the highly tested areas of law? And we're going to link up the answer to that question for you. We've written a blog post on that very specific topic. In fact, we've created a frequency chart that illustrates those highly tested areas of law to help better guide your focus and your preparation so that you can maximize your chances of passing and, of course, improve your MBE score. So to run through some of those highly tested areas of law, first and foremost, the most highly tested subtopics are things like negligence, criminal procedure, and individual rights. So to break this down, of all of the MBE topics, they're all tested equally. By that I mean you're going to receive 25 scored questions on each of the 7 MBE topics. But how they test the subtopics within each are not equal. So turning to torts, I just said there are 25 scored questions, but negligence is the most highly tested sub-issue or subtopic. 12 to 13 of your 25 questions come from negligence alone. Turning to criminal law and criminal procedure, that subject has 25 scored questions as well, but 12 to 13 of those scored questions come specifically from criminal procedure. Additionally, constitutional law. Con law has 25 scored questions, and 12 to 13 of those scored questions comes from the area of individual rights. Next in line is evidence, specifically relevancy. Relevancy will make up 8 to 9 of your total scored MBE questions. So that's second place for the most highly tested subtopic. Next in line are things like hearsay and the presentation of evidence, contract formation, contract performance, breach, and discharge. All of those subtopics are tested equally, and you will see 6 to 7 scored questions on each of those subtopics. Then finally, things like jurisdiction, venue, pretrial procedures, and motions, all of those subtopics will make up 5 to 6 of your scored questions. So again, we will link up our blog post that illustrates this information, and you can also find this information on the National Conference of Bar Examiners website. Our second tip for you to improve your MBE score is that you should get in the habit of dissecting questions. A lot of people think that if they do, say, 1,000 questions or some really large amount of questions, that is the best way to prepare themselves for the MBE or the best way to improve their MBE score. But I'm here to tell you that we take a quality over quantity-like approach. It's true that if you slow down and actually think about the question that's in front of you and get in the habit of dissecting it, you can do less questions and improve your MBE score. And here at JD Advising, we're not telling you not to practice or not to try your hand at application. Of course, you have to practice MBE in order to get better at it and to improve your score and therefore to pass. However, there's not a magic number of MBE questions that you have to complete that's going to guarantee that you pass. So how do you dissect questions? How do you move through them slowly and methodically? When you do an MBE question, you should get in the habit of asking yourself the following questions. What subject is this question testing? Once you've figured that out, ask yourself, what is the legal issue that they're testing here? Then from there, try to articulate that legal rule and apply it to the set of facts in front of you. Finally, when you do apply that rule to the facts, try to reach a conclusion on your own. I urge my students to either cover up the answer choices with their hand or a sticky note or a loose leaf piece of paper. That way, they're getting in the habit of trying to analyze and answer the question on their own before hopping into the answer choices and being persuaded one way over another. This is an excellent way to help you narrow down what you do and don't know. For instance, maybe you can articulate the legal issue being tested, but maybe you don't know the rule. Well, that's a really good sign that you should go back and spend some time in that outline or in that portion of that outline. So by dissecting questions, it's not only going to help slow you down so that you can get the most out of each question, but it's also going to help guide you on what you should be spending your time on so that you can improve your score. Additionally, when I say that you should dissect questions, this also means that if you answer a question incorrectly, you should write down why. So if you sit down and you do 5 multiple choice questions, when you go to grade those 5 multiple choice questions, grab a pad of paper and write down why you got each question wrong. So for instance, if question number 1 was testing negligence and you forgot the specific rule regarding causation, look up that rule in your outline and write it down. The purpose of doing this is it's going to help stick in your memory better. You're more likely than not to avoid making those same mistakes in the future. And isn't that the whole purpose of practicing? So that you can figure out what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong to improve? Well, the legal pad method, or writing down when you get an answer incorrect, will help achieve that goal. Additionally, this legal pad method, or writing down when you get an answer incorrect, is a really great resource. It's something that you can review. It's a great roadmap about what areas of law you don't know and possibly need to go back and review. So let's say, you do 20 multiple choice questions and you come to find out that you keep getting easement questions wrong. Well, using the legal pad method and reflecting upon it would quickly show you that you've written down the rule for easements multiple times and that you should go back and review that part of your real property outline. Then our third tip for you to improve your MBE score is to use real questions. The best way to prepare yourself for the MBE is to practice taking the real exam. The worst feeling in the world is to sit down on exam day and open up that test booklet, and while you're, reading the questions in front of you, to think to yourself, you weren't prepared or you didn't really practice questions that looked this way. This is avoidable. The National Conference of Bar Examiners, who drafts and administers the MBE portion of your bar exam, sells and has released these questions for your practice. And we here at JD Advising have a license to sell those as well. So in this video, we're also going to link up our site so that you can purchase these questions if you're interested. But we highly recommend that when you do practice your application skills in preparing for the MBE, that you practice using real questions. That's going to maximize your chances of success. So just to recap, our 3 tips to help you improve your MBE score by 30 points is to first study those highly tested areas of law. 2, get in the habit of dissecting questions, asking yourself what subject is being tested, what is the legal issue, what's the applicable legal rule, and trying to reach a conclusion on your own. And when I say dissect questions, this also means practice using the legal pad method. That's where you write down the rule when you get it wrong. And then our third tip to help improve your MBE score is to practice using real questions. And again, we're going to link here on this video to our site so that you can purchase those questions if you're interested. Thanks for tuning in, and best of luck on the bar exam.